Every fiber in my body froze at those cold, insidious words. Tiffany, that dazzling, successful woman, pointed a hand at me, a scornful smile spreading across her face. "Oh, that's just my driver," she said. Laughter rang out from the group around her. No one corrected her. No one knew or cared about the pain I'd endured, the sacrifices I'd made, living in her shadow for the last decade. My vision blurred. My ears started ringing. It was like I hadn't existed there at all. Just a driver? Everything I'd done to get her to the top, working day and night, selling the last thing I owned. Was it all for nothing? This humiliation was so much more than just words. It was a punch to my very soul. I finished my water, turned my back without a word, and walked away from that sparkling penthouse towards the heart of the city, alone. That night, something inside me broke, and at the same time, something else was repaired. If these kinds of heartbreaking, yet very real, betrayal stories that life throws at you unexpectedly, and the quiet, merciless pursuit of justice that follows, grab you too, then you're in the right place. Stick with us to see how a person can be utterly broken and then rise from the ashes. Forget to like the video and leave your comments. I'm curious about the lessons you take from this story. And most importantly, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss another powerful, gripping story echoing on your screen every week. Come on, let me tell you how it all began. I tried to believe him, really, but the weekends Liam spent sleeping until noon, glued to his phone, laughing at messages I'd never seen. Sometimes when he looked at me, his eyes flickered between boredom and disdain. I don't know when I went from being his partner to just background noise. His family, they loved me when I was on my own. I'd fix their cars for free, mow their lawns. But now, even my own friends barely called me out anymore. I was always busy, always working. I started to feel invisible, moving through my own life in a crowd of people who just didn't notice me. But I kept going. That's just how I was built. Work provides repetition. I worked late to pay for Tiffany's new BMW. I paid my mother's hospital bills. When Andre needed braces, I sold my old comic book collection without a word, my last connection to simpler childhood days. The party was Tiffany's idea. She'd made senior partner, the youngest black woman at the firm, and I was so proud of her. I really listened as she planned every detail. The Buckhead penthouse venue, the catering company, the signature cocktails. It even included a string quartet. I quietly memorized the numbers, then just as quietly accounted for every item I sold. My custom-built motorcycle, the one I'd spent years restoring, the one I poured my heart into, I sold it to cover the final bill. Party night was hot and sticky, the air humming with cicadas. I wore my best suit, pressed and clean, trying to match Tiffany's energy. She looked magnificent and regal, powerful, already halfway into her new life. Andre was at a friend's for a sleepover. I drove Tiffany there, holding the car door for her as usual. The city sparkled from the penthouse. Tiffany was immediately swallowed by her friends and colleagues. I hovered on the side, refilling my glass, adjusting my tie, tipping the valet. I was used to being in the background, but tonight, in this new way, it hurt. At midnight, a group from the firm gathered around Tiffany. She pointed at me. I smiled, expecting an introduction. Instead, she waved a dismissive hand and said, "Oh, That's just my driver." Laughter rippled through the group. No one corrected her. I froze, my smile fading. As the group moved away, the conversation returned to business. My ears were ringing. I walked to the bar, asked for water, and watched Tiffany hold court with her colleagues. The humiliation wasn't just in the words, but in how easily she dismissed me, as if the last decade hadn't even happened. I finished my water, left without a word, and went home alone. Next morning, Tiffany didn't come home. "Staying with the girls," she texted. No apology, no explanation. I spent the night staring at the living room ceiling, remembering the way she used to reach for my hand in the dark. In the days that followed, something inside me broke. And at the same time, something was repaired. Tiffany started sleeping in the guest room. She barely spoke to me, unless she needed money, or a ride to the airport to pick someone up, or her dry cleaning. Her family ignored me. My sons, including Andre, started mimicking her attitude, rolling their eyes when I asked about homework. It was like living with strangers in my own home. Growing up, Andre became cold, sometimes suddenly asking, "Why don't you do something real for once?" My friends stopped calling. Even people I used to help, whose cars I'd fix in the neighborhood, acted like I was contagious. I didn't protest. I let everything rain down on me. I kept driving, kept showing up to pay the bills for a family that seemed to be falling apart right before my eyes. But at night, I started to plot. Not for revenge yet, but for a way out. I remembered my mother's insistence on always having a backup plan. I started researching veteran programs, loans for small businesses, everything I could find about car repair shops, restoration businesses, and Atlanta's classic car scene. I applied for a mentorship program for veterans run by a local entrepreneur, and to my surprise, I was accepted. I didn't tell Tiffany. I just went to lunch meetings, stayed late in the evenings whenever I could. I absorbed the advice, took notes, worked on the plan. I picked up more driving shifts, quietly saving every extra dollar. I sold my life insurance policy and cashed out my last bit of savings, pawning my gold. Every week I saved money into a separate account, one Tiffany didn't know about. I found a dilapidated garage for rent in the West End, a run-down brick building with broken windows and oil stains on the floor. It was perfect. I signed the lease with the money I'd saved and a small loan from the Veterans Program. I named my new shop Iron Legacy Customs, a nod to my mother and every rough edge that had shaped me. For months, I worked all day and night, driving, fixing, learning, marketing. The first few months were slow, but word spread. I did good work, treated customers with respect, never cheated or cut corners. I worked on classics, a '67 Impala, a '72 Bronco, even a rare vintage Cadillac that belonged to an old Falcons player. My reputation spread mostly by word of mouth. No fanfare, just a steady climb. By the end of the year, I had a waiting list and hired 2 more experienced mechanics. That's when the business became truly profitable, comfortably so. I stopped coming home late. In fact, I barely came home at all anymore. Tiffany barely noticed. She was busy with friends, new events, always another networking opportunity. My sons, including Andre, started high school and drifted even further from me. I had become invisible, but now I didn't mind. I was building something just for me. One night I came home late, exhausted but happy. I found Tiffany waiting in the kitchen, arms crossed, angry. "Where have you been?" she demanded. "At work," I answered. She rolled her eyes. "You mean driving rich people around?" "No," I said quietly. "Building my shop." She blinked in surprise. "What shop?" I just shrugged. "Don't worry about it." A week later, I moved out. I packed my clothes, left a note, and put my house keys on the counter, then drove away in my restored Impala. No shouting, no drama, just silence. Tiffany didn't call. Andre sent one text. "Why'd you leave?" I wrote back, "Call me when you want to talk." Months passed. Nothing. I focused on my shop, my small, chosen family of mechanics, and the peace of a quiet home. I rented a one-bedroom apartment in the West End. I started cooking for myself and riding my old bike on weekends. I reconnected with my sister. The money I sent my mom back in Detroit eased her old pain, and the knot in my chest finally loosened. 2 years passed like water under the bridge. One sweltering summer afternoon, I pulled into a gas station on my way back from a client's house. As I stepped out of my car, a familiar voice called my name. It was Monica, one of Tiffany's old friends from her firm. She looked awkward, shuffling her feet. "Hey, Malik. Wow, it's been a long time. How are you doing?" I nodded gently, acting like I didn't care. "Great. How are you?" She hesitated. "You, heard anything about Tiffany?" I shook my head, feigning indifference. Things haven't been great for her. Something about Mrs. Hughes' funds at the firm last year, a bit of drama. She's going through a tough time." I just smiled. "Life happens." Monica nodded, her lips twisted bitterly. "She's living in College Park now. Lost the apartment. Her boyfriend's gone too. Anyway, I gotta go." She looked at me and walked away. My heart pounded. Not from joy, not from revenge. Just a quiet, settled peace. A few days later, I was leaving a Kroger, groceries loaded into my trunk, when I saw Tiffany. Her once perfectly styled curls looked tired and aging. She dragged her heels, worn out, struggling with cheap grocery bags, a look of utter defeat etched on her face. She saw me. Recognition flickered in her eyes. For a tenth of a second it looked like she was about to call out. But I just gave a calm, composed nod, slid into my Impala, started the engine, and drove past her without a word. I didn't look back. That night, I sat on my apartment balcony, drinking a beer, watching the sun set over the West End. The world felt quieter now. I didn't have a wife or go to flashy parties, or even the praise of a son who'd turned his back on me. But I had a thriving business of my own, a life built on hard work and unwavering honor. I never raised my voice. I never pursued revenge. I just let my pain propel me forward and built something stronger than Tiffany. The family, even Andre, all vanished into the mist, leaving me alone in the sun. When people talked about karma, they imagined lightning bolts and public justice. I knew better. True karma was slow, private, and quiet. It was a man driving his own car, on his own terms, miles away from the people who couldn't see his worth. I was never just a driver. I was a steady, unbreakable engine, built for the distance. The parties, the laughter, the betrayals, they were just potholes along the road. Now, as the city lights twinkled beneath me, I smiled. For the first time in a long time. I had finally learned my mother's lesson.